Some people grow up in noisy houses, not loud because of yelling, loud because of presence. Laughter, footsteps, music down the hall, voices calling your name, photos on the fridge, frames on the wall. I grew up in a quiet house. Not silent but quiet in a way that made you forget your own volume. Quiet in a way that made you shrink. I was 28 when I returned. 4 years since I'd last walked through that red front door. No big fallout, no dramatic exit. Just space. Space that widens slowly, like a crack in glass you only notice once it's too deep to fix. It was my nephew's birthday, and 5-year-olds don't understand trauma or healing or estrangement. They just know who shows up. So I showed up. The house looked the same, eerily the same. Peeling paint on the porch railing. A cracked ceramic frog planter still guarding the steps like it was waiting for something to bloom. The wind smelled like cinnamon and dry leaves. Liam opened the door like nothing had changed. Eliza, finally. He hugged me hard. I let him. Inside, the air was warm. The kitchen was buzzing with voices. Paper plates stacked high. Pink frosted cupcakes. Mom stirring something at the stove. Dad watching the game from the living room. It was a perfectly normal family gathering. The kind where no one brings up anything real. Just, you look great. And how's work? And did you see the weather forecast? And then I saw the photo wall. I hadn't forgotten it. But I hadn't thought about it in years. 3 rows, 4 frames each. 12 moments. 12 stories. 12 pieces of our so-called living memory. Top row. Mom and Dad on their wedding day. Liam's graduation. Grandma in the garden. A Christmas morning with too many gifts. Middle row. Liam's wedding. The baby announcement. Family trip to Yosemite. Dad holding Liam's first daughter. Bottom row. Liam's football trophy. Mom's surprise birthday party. Another Christmas. The whole family in front of the old oak tree. I stared at each frame slowly, and I realized something I didn't want to believe. I wasn't in a single one, not in the corner, not in the blur, not in the background, just not there. 12 frames, 12 memories, and none of them included me. I stepped closer, like distance might correct it, like maybe I missed myself, like maybe I just blinked wrong, but I hadn't. The closer I looked, the more obvious it became. I wasn't part of this story. I was raised in a house where I was always present, but never preserved. I felt a wave of something I didn't have words for. Not sadness, not even rage, something deeper. The ache of invisible identity, because that's what it was. Not just being left out of a photo. It was being left out of a narrative. The one your family tells about itself with or without you. That night, I didn't sleep. The guest room, formerly my room, was cold and unfamiliar. New curtains, new paint, no trace of the girl who once wrote poems on the wall behind the dresser. I walked down the hall and stood in front of the photo wall again. It was late, the house was dark, but the faces in the frames smiled on, perfectly lit by the hallway lamp. I whispered aloud, barely a breath. Where am I? The frames didn't answer, but the ache in my chest did. I moved through the living room like a shadow, past the couch, past the coffee table, kneeling in front of the wooden cabinet under the TV, the one that always smelled like old paper and furniture polish. The photo albums were still there, lined up in perfect order, spines labeled in Mom's cursive handwriting. 2000-2003 vacations, family holidays, Liam. School years, nothing with my name, but I opened them anyway. The first one, family holidays, Christmas 2001, Liam opening a Game Boy, Thanksgiving 2000 to Uncle Joe carving the turkey, Easter 2003, pastel dresses, dyed eggs, big smiles, page after page. I turned them gently, as if the photos were fragile, as if my absence might finally crack and let me through, but it didn't. There was one photo, Thanksgiving 2002, the whole family at the dinner table. Liam's arm mid-gesture, Grandma laughing, Dad raising a glass dot in the far corner, barely visible behind a pitcher of water, a sliver of long hair, a red sleeve, half a cheek, me, cut off by the edge of the photo. I stared at it longer than I'd stared at anything that day. That half face? That was the only proof I had been there at all. I kept going. Liam's school years was an entire album: kindergarten, soccer team, science fair, senior prom, pages and pages of him. I flipped faster, heart pounding now, not from anger, but a strange, hollow panic, like watching your own life narrated by someone else and realizing they forgot to mention you were in the room the whole time. Eventually, I found an old envelope tucked between two albums. Inside were loose photos, not organized, just tossed in. I dug through them like someone desperate to find a missing person, and maybe I was. I found a blurry picture of Liam at the zoo, Mom holding a baby I didn't recognize, Dad asleep in a lawn chair, a dog we used to have, and finally, a photo of a swing set. No people, just the swing, mid-air, caught mid-motion. But if you squinted, if you zoomed in, you could see, just behind the tree trunk, a little girl sitting on the edge of the sandbox, hands in her lap, hair in her face, smiling. That was me. And that image hit me harder than any scream, because it wasn't a portrait. It wasn't a moment I was meant to be in. It was an accident, a background presence in someone else's memory, and yet that accidental capture felt more real than the curated smiles of everyone else. This was faceless storytelling, a life told without the subject present, like I had been reduced to furniture, scenery. I held the photo close. Tears blurred the edges, not from sadness, but from recognition. I was here. I had always been here, even if no one ever framed me, and that was when I knew. This isn't just a story about being left out of pictures. This is a story about what happens when a family forgets to remember you, and what happens when you finally choose to remember yourself. I think the first time I realized I didn't matter much was when I was 7. It was my birthday. There were balloons taped to the ceiling with string, a magician who smelled like peppermint, a cake with my name on it in pink icing, and a disposable camera on the table. I remember standing by the cake, waiting for someone to say, "Eliza, smile. Eliza, stand here. Eliza, let's get a photo." But all I heard was, "Liam, hold the knife. Liam, help your sister blow the candles." Click, flash. That was the photo. It wasn't my birthday anymore. Not in the photos, not in the memory that would be told years later. Just Liam helping, and a blurry pink cake. At 9, I brought home a painting I did at school, a watercolor of our house, with the tree and the porch and the little frog planter. I showed Mom after dinner. She glanced, said, "Oh, nice, but maybe next time draw something more exciting like animals." She didn't put it on the fridge, didn't ask what I felt when I painted it. She folded it, put it on the counter. Later, I found it in the recycling bin under an empty cereal box. At 11, I won my school spelling bee. First place, gold medal. I even made it into the local paper. I left the clipping on the kitchen table, next to Dad's coffee mug. He never asked about it, but he did say, "Hey, Liam's team won the semifinals." And that was what the family celebrated that week. By 13, I started writing in journals, little spiral notebooks I hid under my mattress, because if no one else was going to remember who I was, I had to. That was the beginning of my self-validation story. A girl trying to record her existence in ink before it disappeared completely in photographs. I stopped asking to be in pictures. I stopped waiting for someone to invite me in. Instead, I became useful. "Eliza, can you take the group photo? Eliza, can you film this for us? Eliza, hold the phone steady." I said yes, because it was easier than saying, "I want to be in it too," and because deep down I had started to believe that maybe I wasn't supposed to be. That's the thing about family and visibility. It doesn't hit you all at once. It's a quiet erosion. You disappear gradually, until you start agreeing with your own erasure. At 16, I got straight A's. I told Mom in the car. She smiled and said, That's great, sweetie. Hey, remind me to pick up Liam's tux for prom. She didn't say it to be cruel, but that's what made it worse. No one meant to ignore me. They just did, and I let them. At some point, invisibility stops being a punishment. It becomes a lifestyle. You learn how to blend, how to step out of the frame before anyone asks, how to make your joy quiet, your pain quieter. I didn't realize how much of myself I had packed away until I came home and found nothing of me left. No photos, no drawings, no clippings, no proof, just a swing set, a tree, and a background girl with hair in her face. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was quiet, not peaceful, but hollow, like it had absorbed every moment I had ever been left out of, and was echoing it back at me. I opened the Notes app on my phone, typed a single line, "You were there," then added, "You were always there, even if no one saw you, even if they still don't." I stared at the words. They felt like a whisper from somewhere deeper, some part of me that had waited years to be heard. I closed my phone, but the sentence stayed in my head, pulsing like a heartbeat. "You were there." I got up, pulled out an old journal I found in the drawer, tore out a page, and I wrote myself a letter. "Dear Eliza, you were never invisible. You were ignored. There's a difference. You showed up to the birthdays, to the dinners, to the quiet moments no one photographed, to the rooms where your presence didn't echo. You were there, and now it's time you saw yourself. It's time you framed your own life. No more waiting for someone else to validate your existence. You are here, me." I folded the paper, placed it in the back pocket of my jeans, and for the first time in a long time, I stood up taller, because I wasn't broken. I wasn't needy. I wasn't dramatic. I was a person who had been made to feel small for so long. I forgot what it felt like to take up space, but now I was done shrinking. The next morning, I left early, before the rest of the house woke up, before I could change my mind. As I drove away, the trees blurred into streaks of orange and gold, autumn unfolding behind me, a new season ahead. In the rearview mirror, my childhood home got smaller, until it disappeared, but for once, I didn't. This was the beginning of my empowerment journey, not a revenge story, not a dramatic escape, just a girl deciding she didn't need to be framed by others to believe she belonged in the picture. I didn't go straight home. I booked a quiet Airbnb outside town, a single room above a flower shop, the kind of place with wood floors and windows that let in morning light like soft permission. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened my laptop, typed, "Portrait photographers near me." I didn't want glamour shots. I didn't want to look perfect. I just wanted to look real. Her name was Maya. Her website said, "I capture women learning to see themselves again." That was all I needed. I sent her a message. "I'm not sure what I want, but I've never been in a picture where I felt like I belonged. I'd like to change that." She replied an hour later, "Come as you are. You don't need to be ready. You just need to show up." The studio was tucked behind an old bookstore. Maya greeted me barefoot, holding a mug of tea. She didn't ask for my story. She just smiled and said, "We'll let the light tell it." We started slow. I stood by a window. She didn't direct me much, only said, "Drop your shoulders. Let your hands do whatever they want. Don't pose. Just be." At first, I felt exposed, like I didn't know what to do with my body, like I was taking up too much space again. But then I remembered the letter, and the little girl in the swing set photo, and the empty frames, and I thought, "This one's for you, for all the times you were left out, for the proof you were always looking for." Something shifted. I breathed, let go, closed my eyes, opened them again. Click. She took the shot. It felt like healing through self-portrait, not just an image, but a reclaiming of story, of presence, of self. The next day, she sent the images. No filters, no retouching, just me, soft light across my face, hair loose, eyes open. I looked like someone I recognized, someone I had written letters to, someone I had waited years to find, and now there she was. I picked one, printed it, 11x14, matte finish, black and white. I framed it, wrapped it gently, wrote nothing, just mailed it to the house with the photo wall. I didn't hear anything for weeks. No message, no call, no email, just silence, but it didn't bother me like it used to, because this time, I wasn't waiting for a response. This wasn't a test. This wasn't a plea. It was a declaration. I existed. That was enough. Then one Sunday morning, I got a text from Liam. You coming to Mom's birthday lunch? I stared at the message. A few months ago, I would have ignored it, or overthought it, or assumed it wasn't really meant for me, but now, I just typed, yeah, I'll be there. The house hadn't changed, still smelled like lemon cleaner and roasted chicken, still had the creaky step before the kitchen, but when I stepped inside, something had shifted. It wasn't in the smell, or the sounds, or even in the faces. It was on the wall. There were still 12 frames, still arranged in 3 perfect rows, but one of them was new, 3rd row far right, directly beneath the skylight, bathed in morning sun. Me, the portrait, my face soft, unposed, open, looking slightly past the camera, like I was searching for something, and maybe had just found it. I stood there a long time. No one pointed it out. No one said, did you see? No one explained who hung it. No one needed to, because I knew I had put myself there, literally, figuratively, emotionally, and for once, I didn't feel like I was intruding. I felt placed, rooted, real. Later that day, my niece tugged at my hand. She was 6 now, bright eyes, curious voice. She looked up at me and said, is that you in the hallway? I nodded. You look like someone from a storybook. I smiled, kneeled to her height, and whispered, you are a story too, and you never have to wait for someone else to tell it. That night, before I left, I walked past the photo wall one more time, not to double check, not to make sure it was still there, just to acknowledge it, the frame, the face, the truth. I had always been there, they just hadn't seen me, but I see me now, and sometimes, that's enough. This wasn't just a family story, it was an emotional, storytelling journey, a narrative therapy, a healing through self-portrait, an empowerment story that started with silence and ended in sight.